So I just smoked fucking crack for 2.5 years, you know what I mean? 3 years. Like that's just what happened. I always kind of suspected that I had a little bit of a problem with alcohol. It became problematic. It's funny, after a brief stint of sobriety, self-imposed, just like had a, you know, just kind of burned out. And then when I maybe it was like 6 months or something, and then I started to drink again, and all that, it was just different this time. And I started to drink hard alcohol. So it was almost like there was a progression when I was even abstinent. The hard alcohol affected me in a much more consistent, like kind of aggressive way. So I started to get into a lot of like fights and just blacking out, waking up, not knowing what had happened, being beat up, whatever, you know. And this started to happen a lot, but I'm still doing it. I know, you know, of course, I'm just like, I'm not really, you know, taking a deep look at myself, but I know things are getting a little wild, you know what I mean? But it was still manageable. I did that through the whole DC video, you know, like the entire thing. I was, you know, drinking heavily and doing other things. And then after the video, I would say, you know, the fun stopped and drug use became more of like, this is what I do every day. And, you know, and now I don't want to even be around people because not many people are on this program. So I need to be with new people, if I'm going to be with them, that are on the same program, you know? So then I did that for a while. Without doubt, I know some people voiced their concern. Like, as time went on, shortly thereafter, those kind of things with other people became like a little bit increasingly more serious. But again, I was really, and we didn't have social media then, and it was, you could finish a big video part and you could hide for a while. It's not like today, you know? So, you know, after finishing that DC video, it was like the perfect storm for someone like myself, like where it's like, that's the best I've got. I've finished that. What now? But the checks are still coming in, and I have a, you know, a substance abuse problem, and I have a ton of time and freedom because the money's coming in. I'm not gonna say no to that shit. And I'm burnt out on skating because I just got done doing that, and I also just think that that's the best I can ever do. You know, so and I was able to kind of get away. I don't think you can get away with that this day and age. Yeah, you have an Instagram too, and it's like, and most everybody does, and most all the companies want to tap into that and see that that's active, and you know, you got to be doing shit every day, you know. And it's just like, you could just disappear back then. I had a lot of fun though, you know. I think a lot of times when I get on this topic about things, it's always doom and gloom and dark and shit, and certainly it was that, and it leads you there to that place where you finally are like, either you go fully you know, to the places, the few places that stuff takes you, or you pull out, you know, and you change your life, you know. So, but along the way, like, I had a lot of great times too, you know, like, so, and like, even when it got dark too, like, cause I'm a dark person, so I, you know, but it comes to a point where you're like, yeah, you know, it's no longer becomes sustainable, and the consequences get greater and greater. Alcoholics tend to lean on that kind of more glass is half empty kind of, and then being a skater too, like, I mean, dude, when I grew up, it was just like, we were the biggest bunch of fucking haters. Like, you know, like, skating's tough as far as like what it took to be accepted, you know, all of that stuff, you know. It was tough, you know, and it was, and if you sucked or, you know, didn't look good doing shit, people will let you know, you know. So you kind of grow up like that. You just kind of already you're a little little jaded, you know.
Yeah.
And then especially if you get good at shit, and then, you know, so, and I'm hard on myself, so it's like what I said about the DC video, you know, it's my first reaction is like, good job, but what now? Because that's the best you got, you know. That's how my thinking, you know.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, the thing that has pushed me, because if you aren't hard on yourself, then, well, there's not a driving force, you know. So it's a, you know, it's got its assets and its downsides. I pushed, I think, to the closest to the edge of losing my career as I could have, because it was about 26 is when I started to make some changes and started to skate a lot again. So it was a good 3-year gap of just being kind of not doing it and just having a totally different lifestyle. So 30 was when I got sober. I've been sober since. But yeah, 26 is when I started to back out of the woods and started, like, you know, going to meetings and getting sobriety time, then relapsing, and, you know, back and forth, but skating a lot. And I think getting on Vans was a huge catalyst to me. It made me someone who that it was kind of pessimistic and stuff, and just being like, I'm just fucking burned out, washed up, whatever, you know. And they kind of approached me, was like, wait, you guys want me to, like, someone believes in me, you know what I mean? Because I was on like a probationary contract with DC. It was very well known, like, that, like, I was not doing well, and, you know, you just kind of lean into that, and that's kind of how you think about yourself too. Obviously, I wasn't fucking skating. I was doing everything I shouldn't be doing, but I wanted to skate in Vans, you know. And, like, I all of a sudden had this opportunity in the midst of kind of the darkness I was surrounded by. And I really think that that was a big turning point for me to, like, it helped. It was enough to help me to start to turn things around. And then, yeah, so then by the time I was 30, after Minefield, I got fully sober. I got it, don't I, this time? I'm going to do it for the wolf. For the werewolf. All right, one more try, right here. I think for me was kind of learning more and more why. It's hard to learn why you do these things. I think with alcohol and drug use, most people that start to, well, I've got a problem. I need to address that problem. The first thing is like, well, we need to stop doing the drugs and alcohol. That's my problem. So what I had to learn, and through trial and error, and was that just because I put the bottle down or the drug or whatever, the reason why I go for it that hard is still there, you know, like, so I have to start to address those things, and that's hard work. And, you know, and if you're going to like a 12-step program or whatever, you have to start getting into the kind of the actual work of that stuff, and you start to just see how little the work you're doing. Yes, I drink, I'm going to want more. I don't know where it's going to stop. There's a whole physical side of things. But when I go to take a drink, I make that decision sober first. And it's based off of, you know, a history of feelings and all these things that would lead me to be like, I'm going to do this, you know, and knowing where it's going to take me, you know. So it's like, I think learning that took me some time. Like, whoa, like, I got to do some self-work here. You know, like, it's not about just putting the bottle down. That's not going to be the answer to all my problems. Yeah, like, through sobriety, I was really realized how big my problem was. You can go down the rabbit hole of, like, you know, partying or thinking about a certain time or whatever, and you can, you know, but it just seems like a lot of work. I look back, it's like a different person. I'm just like, I don't even know how I did a lot of the things that I did, and went to a lot of places that it takes you, and like did that day in and day out. It's just fucking exhausting, you know. But
Yeah.
the whole like other side of things, like that's a constant, you know. I still go to meetings, you know, like I still need to, you know, uh seek a better perspective than the one that I produced just solely on my own, you know. So it's still sobriety and all of that stuff. Self work is still something that I got to show up for.